Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude, and today we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room here, the newly developed Tropical Storm Lee, which will most likely intensify into a major hurricane. So we're going to get right into it here, but as always, be sure to like and subscribe. And we're just going to get right into it here, starting off with the Tropical Storm Force wind probabilities, just so you can see how large this wind field is. Right, it's only a tropical storm right now, but it will continue to get stronger as we head down the line. And even though the storm might miss the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico to the north, do know you still could get at least definitely some wave impacts for sure. I mean that's a certainty, but you could get some wind impacts as well. So and maybe even some outer bands depending on where exactly the storm goes. So do keep that in mind. There is that probability for those tropical storm force winds as this storm moves to the west and west northwest. Look at some key messages. Lee is forecast to become a major hurricane by this weekend. I mean, that's like the one thing the models agree on is the strength, and could bring impacts to Leeward Islands by that time. And again, while it is too soon to determine the location and magnitude of the impacts, interest in this area should monitor the progress. And of course, Bermuda and the East Coast as well, because this is certainly heading in that direction. Not saying it's going to strike any one place, but it is heading in the direction of Bermuda and the United States and the Caribbean. So, of course, do keep that in mind. Let's take a look at this cone newly released today. Fun fact, when I started setting up this video, it was still a tropical depression, and then I was just like going through and refreshing everything, for the 5 o'clock update. And I was like, oh, wow, it's a tropical storm. And not just 40 miles an hour, it's up to 45. All right, like its very first advisory as a tropical storm, and it's at 45 miles an hour. Moving west-northwest at 16, although I still personally think, and again, someone can say if they disagree, but I still think it's kind of moving more west. Well, it's like a very, very slight kick to the north, so I guess that's why they call it west-northwest. But to me, it just looks like it's still going due west. But it's certainly going to be making that change here. It's going to continue to move to the west-northwest and eventually closer to northwest as time goes on here. But forecast to become a hurricane by very early Thursday, if not overnight Wednesday, and continue to strengthen. Possibly by Friday afternoon, we could be looking at a major hurricane on our hands and only strengthening from there. But if you were to extend this cone, and of course, where it goes after this is very uncertain. But if you were to extend this, I mean, that's like heading in the direction of, the United States. But again, it could very well do a recurve. It could keep going towards the United States. It could very well do something in between. All right. I mean, the only thing the models can agree on right now is going to move to the west-northwest. It's going to go north of Puerto Rico and the Lesser Antilles. Once it gets to about this zone, like pretty much in this X, that's where everything just goes haywire. All right, models go this way, they go this way, they go this way, they go that way. I mean, everything just goes crazy. But up until then, things are actually looking pretty certain. The models are actually in pretty good agreement. All right, so here you can see it's already a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm by 2 p.m. on, I believe that is Friday. Yes. Or sorry, 2 p.m. on Wednesday, excuse me. Yes, so 2 p.m. tomorrow. And probably in that evening, it'll probably be a hurricane. And then we continue Thursday, and then, of course, Friday afternoon, it's a major hurricane, 125, 140, and even 145 is what we're calling, or is what the National Hurricane Center is calling for 2 p.m. on Sunday, with winds gusting to 175. So winds gusting well into Category 5 force. So yeah, looking like a very strong storm. And again, this is one of the things the models are actually agreeing on here. So if we look at the tropical storm, 35 knots is what's stated on Tropical Tidbits, but again, that equates to 40 miles an hour. But not per the National Hurricane Center, it does have 45-mile-an-hour. Sustained winds, of course, will gust higher than that. Pressure about 1,006 millibars, which I do believe is actually lower now. If we go back to their page here, yeah, it is down to 1,005. And of course, just a quick little thing, we got Franklin up here, and we got our Invest 96L behind that, but 96L shouldn't have any threat to land anytime soon, aside from the Cabo Verde Islands. If we take a look at the satellite, you can see, I mean, this thing is just strengthening like I cannot believe. I mean, before, we were seeing some thunderstorms, it was rotating, but this thing is breathing. The outflow you can see just on the western side of this thing, I mean, it's crazy. Now, yes, it is not typical, it's not normal for the convection to be on that western side, but that's what the storm's going to work on as it rotates. You get those thunderstorms to rotate around the center more. That's the only thing I would say it's not working in its favor right now. But do notice, I mean, the thunderstorms are flaring up massively, especially right now. And again, this storm will only continue to grow as we head through the night and into the next day and the next day and the next day and so forth. But you can see there definitely is like a low level center beneath all these thunderstorms. Again, it's just the storms aren't really rotating around the center yet, but it is certainly strengthening. The thunderstorms are certainly getting stronger. This thing is certainly breathing. It just needs time, and time is what it's gonna get. It's gonna have time for sure. If we take a look at the water vapor, more evidence this thing is breathing. I mean, look at this outflow just go all the way out. I mean, you don't see the outflow getting sheared off at all. Like, there's really not much shear. I believe the Leeward Island or the Lesser Antilles Islands are over here on your left side. But, I mean, yeah, there's really nothing shearing this off. Not that I can see. All right? I mean, any shear is less out there right now is less than 15, 20 knots, less than that. So that is certainly, allowing the storm to really strengthen. You can see those deep whites are those thunderstorms near the center that are flaring up, which is a good sign. Not far from the center. They're near the center, but they need to start rotating around the center. And that's when we get that, real tropical storm strength, hurricane strength, and so forth. So low position right now, 41 degrees west and about 13 degrees north. So that is the evidence I do have, right? Of course, looking at the satellite, you're like, oh, well, this thing's going due west. And I, for one, certainly do think it's mainly going west, maybe a little kick to the north. I mean, you can see it starts over here and it pretty much finishes over here. But if you remember when I released my video from yesterday, you do remember it was at 11 degrees north latitude, which is down here. It has since moved up to 13. Right. So basically, the storms here now was probably, I think it was actually around here the other day, around 33:11, I think were the coordinates. 33 degrees west, 11 degrees north, somewhere around there. So again, it's a slight movement to the north, right? It's still sitting pretty far south relative to normal for these tropical waves that come off of Africa. We look at the model track guidance. Again, pretty good agreement, especially over the next few days. Track somewhere in this vicinity. It's just what happens after that. And that's what the GEFS models start to dig into here. These have remained pretty consistent. They have it going further north. Instead of going here, the black line, the average, has it going a little bit further to the north here. And then that's allowing it to get picked up and recurved right headed straight for Bermuda. I mean, if this thing hits Bermuda, Bermuda's just going to get bamboozled. I wouldn't say wiped off the map, but probably close to it. I mean, this would be like Category 5 strength if it were to, impact Bermuda, or if it hits the United States. That would also be very bad. We look at the GEPS model tracks. Of course, I'm just refreshing these just in case, but I did just refresh them before I started, just to make sure we're not missing any updates. But we look at these are the 12Z model runs. Again, while a lot of models they take it west, they recurve it to the north. There are a fair handful that take it, further west. And do note that if a U.S. impact were to occur, whether that would be Bermuda or the East Coast, it would be later next week. So more than at least a week and a half away from there. So it's a lot of time for things to change. But again, the one thing that the models are actually agreeing on, well, for the most part, there's always going to be outliers, but a lot of models agree. Category 4 or 5 is what it's looking like here. And we're going to go through that in just a few seconds here, but there are plenty of factors. I mean, and not only, look at this. It steadily strengthens to Category 1. Then the strengthening accelerates. So this is where we would hit rapid intensification, right? It strengthens to Category 1, then it's boom. And what would this be, about not even 30 hours? It's up to a major hurricane. Whoa. It's where do we go here? So yes, that rapid intensification, right? That steady strengthening, and boom. That's that rapid intensification. It happens, believe it or not, with most major hurricanes, and especially most, if not all, but most Category 4 and 5 hurricanes. So let's talk about the conditions that are out there. Why is it favorable? And will this storm continue to strengthen as time goes on? My best answer is 100% yes. So the storm is off your screen a little bit to the right here, but take a look at the conditions it's going to be in, right? This is the Tropical Intensity Index map. Highly favorable. And not only to when it passes north of the islands, but even after that as well. All in a sea of red, like I said in the last video. Just highly favorable conditions for development across the board. And let's take a look at the cyclonic vorticity signature. You can see, remember last video, it was looking a little bit more stretched out. Now we're starting to see it become more round. Kind of like with the remnants of Gert up here. I believe that's the remnants of Tropical Storm Gert. But you can see becoming more round, more organized. all right, more circular, and that's certainly what you want to see, right? And the colors are getting deeper as well, meaning we're seeing some strengthening both in the storm and the thunderstorms within it. Looking at the dry air, now you might think, oh, well, look, there's dry air in its way. That may be true, but I mean, you can see the outflow is pretty much cutting right into this. All right, it's able to fend off that dry air for right now. And you gotta understand, this is a still image, so your brain is led to think, oh, it's gonna head straight into this. No, you gotta also remember the dry air is moving west to east. All right, so I'm sorry, east to west. So this will continue to move, right? Because the dust comes off of Africa, it moves this way. The storm will probably be on its heels, but I don't think the storm's going to tap into any of that dry air, especially because of the strength that we're seeing on the models as well. We take a look at the oceanic heat content here. You can see about where the storm is, somewhere in this region right now, because I do believe the coordinates were. We take a look here. Yeah, okay, it was 41 degrees west. All right, so taking a look at that, yeah, so it's sitting at about here. All right, actually, maybe a little bit further to the south, maybe like right in here. But the point is, as it continues to make its way to the west-northwest, the oceanic heat content, like I was saying before, only going to get deeper. Right now, we got sea surface temperatures, as I showed you last video, 85 degrees. Right, that's already warm enough. I mean, well warm enough. You really only need, guaranteed, and given that the other conditions are good, you really only need 80-degree waters to get like a good hurricane or even major hurricane if enough time is given going. So to have 85-degree waters, that's more than enough. Not only that now, but we got very warm waters that are present here north of the Caribbean, deep below the ocean surface, which is even more energy, right? Because warm ocean sea surface temperatures, the storm can tap into energy. But when more water, when you have a higher quantity of water available, that you can tap into for even more energy and strength, well, that's only going to fuel the storm even more. All right, and that's what it's going to be heading into. This zone right here is where it's really going to do its rapid intensification, which pretty much perfectly lines up with the intensity forecast models, right? Over the next 48 hours, it's going to head into that zone and then boom, rapidly intensify. And pretty much all models on this map are showing that. So these two kind of go hand in hand. I've never seen so much agreement in the models about strengthening. Track is not in agreement, but strength certainly is. So I guess that's one good thing. If we look at the current wind steering, all right, I believe this is a more updated map from this evening. You can see there is a little bit of an upper level high pressure system that's kind of staying there and kind of causing the storm to move in a more, and this is my other piece of evidence that it's kind of moving in a more due west direction. I mean, it's still moving north a smidge, but it's still able to move due west. You can see according to that wind steering, and it may eventually, again, this is a still map. These will all change as the storm moves. I think eventually this will get picked up and kind of carried this way. Right, but it will still stay pretty far south, which is why there's a little bit of concern there for the island still. All right. Of course, even if there isn't a direct impact. Wind shear actually has been going up a little bit. I mean, the storm is able to fend off shear pretty well. There's really no shear around it right now. As I said before, there's a little bit of increasing shear off to the west of it. But again, this will probably just fade once again. And even still, it's only about 20 knots of shear. Nothing this can't handle, all right? Nothing this cannot handle. But again, still a lot of areas with very low wind shear, below 10 knots in that zone. That same zone with those deep warm ocean waters has no wind shear, which is why, again, this thing is going to explode once it hits that region, given the atmospheric conditions at the moment. Of course, again, things can change. So we do have now the 18Z model run of the GFS out. So we can kind of show you, again, going north of the Caribbean there. I mean, look at this, 930. This is 4 days from now, mind you. This is Saturday evening. This thing is practically like a category 4, if not a 5. I mean, 938 millibars is crazy. Crazy strength. And you'll see it makes a turn, all right? And one thing I have noticed compared to the last model one that was a change is we got this low pressure with a frontal system it's more east and it's more prominent than it was before. That's a good thing, or at least for the United States and the East Coast, because it's going to be able to pick up that storm and carry it away from the United States. If we look at the same snapshot from last model run, the same snapshot, just another model run, notice how the L, or the low pressure system, is a lot further west, right? The the frontal system is a lot further west, so it's not exactly able to get to the storm as quick. And so if we go back to the 12Z model runs here, not able to get there as quick, hence it getting dangerously close to the United States and even making an impact, almost a direct impact there on like Cape Cod and Maine. So that would be a disaster. Right? So honestly, along with the high pressure system, the Bermuda high that's controlling it, what's also going to be a factor again is that trough. Now that trough or this low pressure system with the front here could pick the storm up and drag it out to sea, or if it's waiting a little bit further to the west, what that could do is allow some troughing to come and pick it up and drag it closer to the United States in between that and the high that would set up here. Does it kind of sound a little bit familiar? It does. Hurricane Sandy was kind of like that. Not the same track, with this, not the same storm track, but you had a trough that pretty much dug down in this region like this. It kind of did a very sharp dive and a recurve up, and that allowed Sandy to just get hooked inward. And from what the last model run of the GFS looked like, and how many other runs of the GFS have been saying that, but this is a more positive run. The trough's a little bit further east, right? That trough sets up more east, meaning it's not really gonna. It might pick it up and send it, into Nova Scotia, but maybe not so much of a U.S. impact, except for like the eastern tip of Maine. So again, only time will tell. Again, two steering factors I would focus on: that Bermuda high and that trough that's going to come through late next week. If we look at the European model, again, watch it, and also watch it how it just slows down. I mean, it sits there for a couple days before it finally moves to the north. It only goes out 10 days, but keep an eye on that trough. It's pretty far east. All right, so that is a positive thing for the East Coast. But again, it still gets dangerously close. I mean, with all these model runs, the GFS, the Euro so far, even for the East Coast, expect very major coastal impacts, like worse than we did with Franklin, because the storm will probably be stronger than Franklin, or just as strong at least. It's going to be closer in proximity to the United States, meaning higher wind speeds, higher waves, even if you're not getting directly impacted by the system. If we look at the Canadian model, I will say, spoiler alert, I'm not going to really spoil it that much because I'm showing it to you, but this is one of the models that I think, first of all, it has it pretty weak. If we zoom in here, 972 millibars, but also has it the furthest away from the United States. I think it even goes, I'm trying to look closely here, it goes like right over just east of Bermuda, so this thing just gets picked up and tossed out to sea. Right? And that's mainly due in part because there's really no high pressure to really steer it necessarily. And it's close in proximity to this other low pressure system as well, which I don't know, because there's a lot going on here. Because then there's another one that forms down here, so it's going to get pretty busy into September. I believe that one, yeah, so that one that was next to, I think that's Invest 96L. And then I guess this would be the future 97L. I don't know, there's a lot of storms that are going on, but we're just going to focus on Tropical Storm Lee, of course, for the remainder of the video. We look at the HWRF, a pretty good intensity model. Not so sure about as looking at it like a tracking model, but still, it's pretty decent. I think, again, a good intensity model. Shows it moving to the west-northwest. I mean, just getting absolutely ginormous. I mean, pressures go down to, I believe, at one frame, they go down to 930 millibars. And it's a storm and this one only goes out 5 days on all model runs, so I can really only take you out this far. But, I mean, based on how this looks, if it continues on that path and it does no recurve, I mean, or a slight recurve, that's going in this direction or this direction. All right, so this is definitely putting the East Coast on alert. I would say the modeling hasn't changed too much from last video. We certainly got some more information. We will continue to over the next few days. But the fact that it's a tropical storm definitely makes headlines now, so be aware, Caribbean, U.S., and Bermuda for the storm system. I am the Weather Dude, signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.